Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start in 2 minutes. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second day of the open consultations and MAG meeting. So this is the second. Sorry. Let me start again. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon and evening, those of you who are joining us online. This is the second day of the MAG meeting, and it's the third day of the Open Consultations and MAG meeting series, and this is our final day as well. I'd like to thank you all for sticking with us. And just to go over that, the meeting is being recorded, and there's going to be a transcript afterwards. There's going to be a summary report afterwards as well. And we are still trying to use the speaking queue. So if you would like to make an intervention, please put your name on the speaking queue. If you're unable to use the speaking queue, please just put a message into the chat of the WebEx room, and then somebody from the Secretariat will put your name into the speaking queue. And when the chair calls your name, can you just please restate your name and organization, and then make your intervention. With that, I will pass it on to our chair, Henriette Esterhuizen, to start the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shangatai. Henriette Esterhuizen here, MAG chair, and welcome to ladies, gentlemen, and anyone who prefers to have a non-binary gender identity. This is the third day of our meetings this week. It's the second day of the MAG meeting. I want to start by just thanking the Secretariat and our tech support team here at the UN as well. While we had many glitches on day one on the open consultation, yesterday was a technical glitch-free meeting. So I think the MAG and the Igf community has mastered not just Zoom, but also WebEx. So any platform you want to throw at us, Shangatai will handle it. I want to review the agenda for today. Just to give everyone a sense who's here, we've got 19 participants online, and we have just about 20 participants in the room. The numbers will pick up as the day proceeds. Today, we'll start off by having a bit of a recap of the planning for the implementation of the hybrid IGF. The Secretariat will just share with us some of the plans for logistics. It will be informed by discussion during the open consultation. And I'd like you as MAG members to keep in mind what emerged from the open consultation as well. So some of those ideas, they might feel quite scattered at the moment, but if reflect back, you'll You'll remember that we emphasized how important it is to have a chat moderator, for example, how important it is to facilitate comment on sessions by people who are not participating in real time, etc. So we'll reflect back on our plans, but in the light of the comments we've received this week. We'll also look at the plans the Secretariat has for training session organizers, and again, we need to enhance those with input that we received this week. We'll look at the program for newcomers, for the Youth Summit, and we won't look at final meeting outputs this morning. We looked at them yesterday, and the team is still busy updating their plans in the light of yesterday's breakout group discussions. But later in the day, they'll come to that. After that, we'll immediately go on to updates from MAG working groups. We'll start with the MAG working group on hybrid meetings, MAG working group on IGF strategy, and the working group on outreach, engagement, and communications. And thanks to those of you who have presentations and who have shared them. Then we will break into groups. This worked quite well yesterday. I know it worked well for the people here in Geneva. And I must say, to those of you who worked online, you did fantastically as well. So I hope you don't mind doing that again today. And the purpose of those breakout groups, and will give you exact questions, is really to come up with anything specific that you want the Secretariat and the MAG to add in addition to existing plans. So any modifications, any new components in the planning that you feel should be included. And then that's the one purpose of that breakout group. And then secondly, to reflect on any of the recommendations from the MAG working groups. And that will also include the communication strategy for IGF 2021. Once the groups come back, depending on how long we've taken and when we'll break, we'll have reports, but then we'll go into main session. So we might start the main session discussion before lunch. We might not. It really depends on how long the presentations take. After that, we'll go to the main session proposals. So I know MAG members have been working and have been updating their proposals. I am talking to the Secretariat about when the final deadline will be, but for today, the way we will discuss these proposals, which I think will do them more justice than what we did yesterday, is for you to send the link to your main session proposal to the Secretariat to indicate very clearly who will present that proposal. And then the Secretariat will display the proposal to both the face-to-face and the virtual participants. And we'll talk through each proposal, and we'll have comments after each proposal, and we'll capture those comments, and then MAG members will have to go back and finalize those proposals. And I'll communicate what the deadlines are for final submission once I've had a chance to talk to Shagatai about that. But we'll communicate what the next steps are. We will then have the presentation from Sorina and Wim on outputs for IGF 2021, which will consist of the existing plans that have taken into account the discussion at this meeting yesterday and the day before. So they will share what they've planned. And then the final session today will be looking at the intersessional work and NRIs at the 16th IGF. And that's where you'll have a chance to look at what the session proposals are from the BPFs, the policy networks, the dynamic coalitions, and the NRIs. We already know there's a little bit of overlap. So some of the policy networks are collaborating with some of the main sessions, but that will be included in that presentation. And that will be it. We'll consolidate what the next steps are for the MAG, what the deadlines are, and we'll then close our meeting. Any questions on the agenda? Anything that we've left out? In fact, I've realized there is something that I would like us to discuss, and that is evaluation. I've actually talked with Roberto Zambrana about that, the workshop evaluation, MAG working group, because in the debrief of the 2020 IGF, there were comments about us needing to think about two things. Firstly, rethinking how session evaluations are captured and communicated, and actually ideally anonymizing them. And then secondly, to have some overall evaluation. Now, we don't have to discuss that today, but I just wanted to table it so that you can actually start thinking about it. Comments or questions, or can we proceed? Good. Thanks very much for that support for this quite challenging agenda, but better than yesterday, I think. And Shengetai, can I hand over to you and the Secretariat? I'm not sure who'll start us with the review of the planning for implementation. Perhaps, Anya, we can start with that the hybrid IGF slide.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And let me just briefly share my screen. So, yes, thank you. So, at the beginning of this meeting, during the open consultations, Chengetai walked us through the logistics about the implementation of the hybrid format. So I'm not going to show the same slide. I think it would be beneficial for us as well as for the MAG if we look at the information that is available now on the IGF website regarding what Chengetai presented. So if you go to the IGF website on the IGF 2021 menu, you will see that there is a tab called About Hybrid Format. And if you click on that tab, you will basically see the content that Chengetai elaborated on Monday. So let me just briefly remind of those elements that were elaborated on. So the hybrid format focuses firstly on the objective to ensure that participants participating from the IGF venue in Katowice, as well as those participating from any part of the world, will have a meaningful experience when it comes about meaningful participation. And we are trying to set conditions as equal as possible for both types of participants. So in order to achieve that, the participating platform is extremely important. As Chengetai said, the 16th IGF will be hosted through a unique digital platform, which in practice means that when participants are in the meeting room in the Katowice venue, they would need to be connected to the participating platform, and the interventions would need to be requested through a floor system through the IGF website. There will be, as Luis mentioned, a dedicated mobile application, which hopefully will make it easier for those connecting through their mobile devices to find information in one place and very quickly access the schedule, the floor system, and the participating platform through it. The experience of the venue, so very briefly, because that doesn't necessarily relate to the program in terms of the discussions through sessions, but the participants participating from any part of the world will have an experience of entering the venue as participants that are present in Katowice. So that means that we will have a 3-day venue which mirrors basically the design of the physical venue in Poland, and participants will be able to technically, virtually enter the venue, virtually enter the meeting room and access the participating platform, which means basically the Zoom platform to join the meetings. The same applies to the IGF Village. Each booth will have its equivalent online in the 3D venue platform. So I'm not going to go into time zones and similar. You know that the networking sessions will also have opportunity for online participants to participate the way the on-site participants will do so. And then also on this page on the website, the FAQs are available, which are put together in a collaborative effort by the Working Group on Hybrid Meetings, as well as the IGF Secretariat, the host country, and everyone else who participated from the community. And of course, there is also a useful source of information, hopefully, which is the town hall, which was hosted very, very recently. So that is the plan for implementing the hybrid format. Probably very important for the MAG as well as for the session organizers and all participants are these challenges that the time zones are posing to many which will not be able to be at the venue. So we will make sure that there is a way for those participants to feed in their inputs beforehand, so before the start of the session, but also after the session concludes. And that's very much dependent on the work of the session organizers, who will make available accurate session descriptions so that the participants who read the session description will know what to expect, and they can accordingly pose a question through a collaborative platform, which is still in development, but probably it will go through the IGF website. And then also to ensure that they produce a session report 12 hours after the session ends, so that in addition to having transcripts and videos posted shortly after the session ends on the IGF website, participants who were not able to attend live that session can actually go through that content and then, based on that content, pose their questions, which will be, again, responded by the session organizers, by the panelists, through that same platform where the questions will be posed. So I think that would be all for the hybrid format. I know that Louis will be speaking about the engagement of session organizers I'm sure for the MAG as well, for the Secretariat. That's probably the critical cooperation for ensuring the interactivity between the session organizers and participants, regardless from where they participate. So we will ensure that we have presented this information to the session organizers very closely so that they're familiar with the platform and so on. I will not go into those details, as that's something that Louis will be doing. And then for the program for newcomers, maybe I can come to that point a bit later once it's on the agenda. Well, thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Anya. If there are any questions for clarification, please go ahead. I know you will be discussing these in the group breakout sessions, but if there are questions for clarification, please go ahead. Next, can we ask, Louise, are you able to share with us just very broadly what the plans are for training session organizers? And I think any other outreach that you have to session organizers would be good to hear.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly. Thank you very much. So every year before the IGF, we organize some trainings for the different sessions so as the online participation runs smoothly. Last year it was a purely online meeting, so everything was online, and there was specific training for that. And from this year we have hybrid format. So there are some particularities in the fact that the online participation is really given the same weight as on-site participants. There will be trainings for the different actors participating in this hybrid format, and these actors are mainly the moderators, organizers of the session, as well as some volunteers that we have working supporting the sessions, both on-site and online. So what we usually do, and what we will do this year again, is next week probably we will announce the dates, but we can say that in the first half of November, so 2-3 weeks before the meeting, we organize at least a couple of sessions in different time zones, so for maximum people to attend live, and we record the webinars. We organize webinars in which we invite all the agents. All the agents are specifically the session organizers and moderators, and these volunteers that will support the session. Basically, we explain what is the role of every agent, and if you want, we run a test session, how it would work. Okay, a test session so everyone would know in the day of the meeting how this is going to work. So, for example, how is it going to work? for the volunteers to announce that there will be the session will be recorded, that there will be transcript where everyone can find the transcripts. How can everyone request the queue? Okay, that's on the one side, and on the other side, for the volunteers, how they could interact with them, being able to manage the session, knowing that they have this technical support from the volunteers, both on-site and online, but also being able to moderate on-site and online their own session. This means that usually there are 2 people per session, one managing more the purely moderation of speakers, who is going to talk next and giving the floor, etc. Another person is probably more concentrated in the online participants in the chat that was discussed in the very first day in the open consultations of this MAC meeting, and will also help each other. And they will collaborate closely with these volunteers people. So these sessions will run this will be the agenda, so how everything will work technically, basically, and then like to run a test session. We also will provide previously and during the session a manual of usage of the tools that we will use. Basically, this year will be Zoom with the different things that they can use during the meeting. And of course, every other speaker, online speaker or participant, or also remote hubs representative that want to join the session will be also invited. So to see that, for example, that a remote hub can request the floor, and how does the moderator deal with that if, for example, they want to give priority to remote hubs or it's not needed, etc. So just wrapping up, there will be this session, they will be announced, session organizers will be invited, and for them to invite any possible speaker or interested agent of the session, volunteers helping and remote hubs will be also invited. We will provide documentation, we will run a test session, and I think that's all. And the important point of attending to any of these sessions is that you will be able to make the questions live. Of course, we will be happy also to answer the questions that you may have later, or before or later, about how the session will be held in terms of hybridity and all the other aspects. And that's all. Thank you very much. If you have any question, happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Luis. There's some people in the speaking queue. I'll just, before I give them the floor, also a question in the chat asking which app will be used to create the virtual space for participants.
So this is a very good question. Thank you. So in parallel of Zoom, we will be using an app. It was notified before, I think, by Chengetai, not maybe the name, but the style. It is a 3D navigation a 3D navigation application specifically for people attending online, so as they can feel the experience as much as possible of attending the venue on site. Actually, the venue is being designed at the moment in 3D, so people can navigate the venue and go, for example, to the village booths and attend one of the booths there in the app, and getting some meeting, getting some brochures or information, seeing the videos, the same things that they would find in the booth. This app is expected to be also linked with some a networking system that we have used in the past. Basically, you will be able to meet informally with people, so this is out of the networking sessions, and chat, and like in the same way if you were in the venue. So I personally don't think it's always going to be the same as physical contact, but still we try to make this networking as good as possible, maybe for future occasions, to create this networking in advance and make it fruitful.
What is it called?
So the app is Collective Vibe, and I mean also the remote hubs are also based on this. I mean, we have, for example, this not so many people, but on-site experience here. So actually, with this hybridity, the IGF is becoming more like a host country-based event still, but really with a more focus in the worldwide based and the focus on the different hubs and local meetings is important, so people can still interact, but everyone can connect through this networking app. So this is just it's not going to be it's not perfect, but it's going to help for networking, for navigating the venue, and to make really the IGF experience as the best possible for everyone, being able to attend on-site in Poland or online or from the local community.
Thanks, Louise. And just one more question from me on the app, but you wouldn't have to use it. I, for example, because of my internet being slow, couldn't use the Eurodig 3D app at all. So, I mean, so if I understand it correctly, one will be able to go directly to the Zoom links from the schedule, and the 3D app would be optional. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. So both things, of course, will be possible. You will be able to navigate to the rooms and go to the Zoom sessions, or you can just attend from the schedule. Yes, we have that in mind, the 3D and the needs of that to deploy the 3D. But I mean, it is as lighter as possible. So it's like there is always a compromise between the user experience and accessibility in all aspects. So to make it, for example, multilingual, to make it accessible in all possible aspects. So this is a help. Again, this is the first year, given the circumstances that we use this. It's the same as the mobile app, for example. We try that it adds and not removes, but of course we will learn if something does not work well. We will learn for the future, as we always do, and whatever works, we will potentiate it for future years. This is the idea.
Thanks very much, Louise. Serena, you have the floor.
Thank you, Andriette. Hello, everyone. A quick question. I know these training sessions are supposed to be more technical, but building on a discussion yesterday on outputs, would it be possible to add a short item on the agenda of these sessions about the report, so we explain to session organizers and moderators what would be different this year and what we expect from the key takeaways?
So did you get that, Louis? So it's adding to the session organizer capacity building, this component on output and reportings. And Serena, I would assume that your suggestion is also to add it to any documentation and guidelines that are shared with session organizers.
Absolutely. Also because women and I are working on guidelines.
Louise, do you want to respond? Or shall we listen to Teresa first and then you can respond to both? Teresa, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning to everybody. So Teresa Horizova, MEC member, Eastern Europe, Civil Society. In a true hybrid session, I've decided to experience this meeting also in a hybrid way. I participated with you in the room, which was excellent on Wednesday and Thursday. And today I'll be joining you online. And I'm curious to about the comparison I will take from that. One thing I can already say, yesterday I did not have to calm my dog barking all the time. So I would like to react on what Luis has been saying, and my comment will be quite similar to what Serena raised just a minute ago. We are grateful to receive these details about the capacity building sessions. I'm super glad about all the volunteers that will be available to assist. But as also Serena pointed out, it seems to me this is very technical, operational type of issues, which are extremely important. But I feel that the hybrid nature of the session goes much beyond that. It's also increasing capacity of session organizers to plan this session with more interactivity in mind, with more experimental mindset. And that is something that I was missing as an element when describing the capacity building sessions. So I was wondering if that could be integrated, if we could help with Adam and the full working group on hybrid meetings somehow trust me, we will be glad to do that because I think that we shouldn't limit this to everything working well on the technical level. As for the app, again, it sounds great and exciting. It would be, I think, quite good to maybe try to somehow test it, review it before the IGF to possibly bring any suggestions. But again, I'm not familiar with Collectify app. I don't know to what extent it can be tailored and so on. So these would be my comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Teresa. Yes, I was also thinking that the training needs to have those the technical component and the process component, the output component, and I think again, as with Sorina's remark about the outputs, I think the written, the document, the guidelines that we send should also factor this in. I know there are FAQs for session organizers, and maybe we can expand that. But Louise, over to you to respond to these suggestions and questions.
So thank you. I will start in order. So question by Sorina. This is a different thing, which is also integrated, of course, for session organizers. This is not in these trainings. I don't know if a different training should be organized for the reporting part. And that's not really technical. I mean, technical, we put the means for the training to be filled, but maybe it would be good to think about another training, if necessary, for the rapporteurs of the session. So what technically will be there is like every session owner, usually the creator, or any other person that requests it, of the organizers, will have access to the reporting section of the reporting section of the session page, and they will be able to fill the different at the different times all the reporting information. Remember that there is not only that. Every session will also have access for the community to send questions in advance, looking for this hybridity of the IGF. We started this last year. Session questions in advance and send a feedback that may or may not be used by the rapporteurs to write the report. So in their own side, every rapporteur, when they log into their website or the app, they will have access to see if someone has sent, for example, a question or a feedback. So they will be able to incorporate that, if that's the case, into the report. That's for the reporting part. I hope that to have answered it. And for a question by Teresa, I see the point, Teresa, what you are saying. Let me be more precise. So you are again talking now more about beyond technical training. Let me say that in these trainings that we conduct specifically about how a session is conducted, they are more about that, about they are technical meetings, but they are not so technical all the time. In the meaning that the objective of the meeting is that a session runs smooth, and there are tools there for them to use. So if they, for example, have the access of using the speaking queue, and someone has to remove the person from the speaking queue, and the moderator has to call someone from the speaking queue, we also show them how to do that. So it's like in a diplomatic way that you are in the speaking queue, that if you are going to speak, you give your name, or if you, for example, want to use any other tool, how you can present it. I wrap up this part. The support that we will give in this training is for the tools, and for all the tools that we offer for hybridity of the IGF, all the tools that we put in place. If the session organizers themselves want to put any other tool which is not redundant with what we already offer, they will usually know how to use it. But we are here as well if we can help them in some way. So this is not initially supported, but of course we are happy to help wherever we can. So this can, for example, appear in the questions of this meeting. Okay, if they want to use a document sharing platform, how they can do that so as it's interactive with all the audience, how could they share the screen, etc. So the answer can be technical, you see, but how to implement that. But the objective is practical. It's for them. They have a practical question. I would need to share this content just to make the community participate, and we will give an answer that, even being technical, the objective for them is that the session runs smooth with their objectives of interactivity and of output generation. I hope to have been more clear than confusing. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. And I think that's enough for now. I think maybe when the groups have the breakouts, and particularly the group that the Secretariat is participating in, you can talk a little bit more about this. I mean, I would suggest that we do the training, and that we have, mirroring the training, also written guidelines, because I think often not all session organizers attend the trainings, and especially those who are IGF veterans, and they might assume they know more than they actually know. So I think we also need to find a way of making it possible for them to come to the capacity building, but also to share guidelines. And I think later on we'll hear about the communication strategy as well, which is adding another dimension that we might want them to consider. Anyway, thanks very much, Louise. I don't see anyone else in the queue or anything in the chat. So, Adam, you are in the queue. Please go ahead, Adam.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Adam Peake speaking as a MAG member. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the hybrid elements of the meeting, and it may not be so much for Luis. It's more a general comment following on from what Teresa said, and this is something that I, and others in the hybrid group have mentioned. And I do think that it's time we actually contacted all of the session organizers to talk to them, essentially, about what the hybrid meeting means. So I'm talking about workshop organizers, open forums, dynamic coalitions, best practices as well. Any of the sessions that are not going to be on the main session or high-level track, and to have a discussion about essentially what hybrid means, what's expected of them, which may not be clear to all of them. I don't think we have that many. We've got, 120, 130 sessions, and so we've got 40-odd people participating in this session. So obviously not all of them are here. So they do need to hear this, and it's just the general information about the approach. Yes, you will need to have Zoom skills. Many people will have Zoom skills. I don't necessarily mean the technical skills that Luis may be talking about, although those will be important, but just what you need to know as the host of a Zoom meeting and how to run it. The general sort of modalities of how it's going to work. Timekeeping is particularly important. We learned that last year. You're not going to run over. I know that's simple, but it's a good thing to know about the tools that people are anticipating to use. Do they want to run a poll? Do they not? Let us know about that kind of thing. Just the general discussion about how it will work, the fact that they need two moderators, or a moderator and a facilitator, somebody to make the presentation element, the panel or whatever it would be, work, and then someone to monitor the online elements of that, and the interaction that would be wanted between both the online participants and the on-site participants. Some of them may be online only, and therefore we as the MAG, I think, should be helping them to find somebody who intends to be in Katowice who can help them out with any interaction with the room. So I'll stop there, but I mean, I'm talking far too much, but I think that, I hope, reflects, if I'm not talking, if I'm making sense, then that reflects the need for a session of the type that I'm talking about. And I think it needs to be done quite quickly, because we're getting, 70-something days now? I think it was Christoph said at the start of the meeting. And this is going to help people understand what they're going to be attending. It's the sort of thing that's going to, if we need to have confidence in this meeting. So there's a lot of training to do. So I hope we can get on with it, and I hope we can have a contact with all of the organizers that I mentioned, because otherwise it's going to be quite confused in Katowice and online. So thanks very much. Bye-bye for the moment.
Thank you very much, Adam. No, you are not talking very much. And for a native English speaker, your English is actually very clear and easy to understand. As a non-native English speaker, I don't always understand English speakers as well as I understand non-English speakers. But I'm talking too much now. So I think that's a very good point. And I'm wondering, the Secretariat, I defer to them on this, but I think it would be useful for the Secretariat if these general guidelines and considerations that you were emphasizing, Adam, if the hybrid working group, if the MAG can actually document that, because then the Secretariat can integrate that into their training program. But if you document that, and I think you've already done quite a bit of that, because the FAQs produced by the MAG hybrid working group already addresses some of these issues. But maybe what we need here is an information sheet or a briefing document for session organizers that emphasizes all those points that you just did, Adam. And then the Secretariat can draw on that for the training. And in that way, we can also ensure that there's consistency between what the conceptualization of how to approach the hybrid meeting that's being done by the MAG hybrid working group with the capacity building developed by the Secretariat and delivered by the Secretariat. And then I think if we have the documentation, that also means we can use that to reach people who do not attend the actual training sessions. But I think everything you've said is very, very important. Secretariat, do you want to respond? Do you feel it's realistic
May I
what Adam
just
is asking for?
May I
Adam,
just
go
jump
ahead.
in? Yeah, just before Secretariat. Apologies, Changatai and team. Yes, I think we do have documentation, and of course we've worked on the frequently asked questions and so on, but we can't be sure who's read that. And I think we know from experience that some of the people who are regular participants in the IGF will have done so, but many who are putting workshops in for the first time or something probably will have not. So I really do think that we ought to contact them, because we can't rely on information that's just available on the web. So thanks.
I agree with Adam 100%. We have to push this information to session organizers, and we have to do it more than once. We cannot rely on them finding the information on the website. Secretary, do you want to respond to that before we continue? Any thoughts?
I think they were sensible suggestions, and yes, we will be. All the session organizers are on a mailing list, and we will be sending them this information and reminding them and sending them the links as well.
And will you be making a video as you've done in the past? Maybe just a short video on how to approach the hybrid, or a recording of one of the training sessions. Is that something else that you could do?
Recording of the training sessions, that's without a doubt we'll do that. A more tailored video we'll discuss with our hybrid meeting working group as well. So
okay. Thanks very much for that. So, and everyone, all participants, you will have a chance to talk a little bit more about this if you have additional suggestions in the breakout groups. But now, can we hear about what the plans are have we covered engagement of session organizers? There's nothing else. Are there any other plans? We've basically covered that, and we've added to that. The program for newcomers. Anya, could you update us on that, please?
Yes, thank you. So just a quick historic reflection. We've introduced the program for newcomers in a more formalized format since the IGF in Mexico in 2016, and we had it every year ever since, all the way until last year. Our experience overall is very positive. The newcomers track, especially the first session of the track, which provides basically a navigation of what the process is about and what the meeting is about. It's very, very positive, and it's a very well-visited session. Now, in past, we had different forms of implementation. Probably the most ambitious one was indeed in Mexico when it included an online webinar, which had a very good attendance, especially from the host country participants. Then the so-called knowledge cafes, where the first time newcomers could meet different stakeholder groups and speak about why these stakeholder groups have interest in a multi-stakeholder process such as the IGF, all the way to one big session of 90 to 120 minutes, which focuses, as I said, on three main segments. The first segment relates to what the process is about in terms of the structure and in terms of the policy impact. And then the second segment focuses on the next 4 or 5 days in front of them, so what the meeting is about, how to maximize their participation. And then the third, the last segment would focus on what next after the meeting, so how to long-term stay engaged with the IGF. Usually those sessions would be hosted in the morning of day one, so before the official program starts. They would be facilitated by the IGF Secretariat and the MEG chair. The preparatory process really is open. It can include anyone who's interested to contribute to designing of this session. I think in the past 3 years, our capacity was a little bit limited, so we were not implementing the so-called knowledge cafes that I've mentioned, but we were implementing that one main 90-minute session in the morning of day one, or exceptionally toward the end of day 0. And we would make available all written information beforehand on the IGF website on a dedicated space to help inform the first-time participants before they come to that session. The Q&A section of that session is very important, and we strategically tend to reserve the biggest amount of time among those 90 minutes for that section. So the plan for this year would be basically what I said now, to do on the day one in the morning a session of 90 minutes with these three segments that I mentioned. The facilitators of the session would be, again, the Secretariat and the MAG chair, of course, with the involvement of MAG in the whole organization as they wish. And on the IGF website, we would make available information, written information, or in any other format which are relevant for participants to learn about historic process of the IGF, but especially about how to navigate the IGF 2021, including the pre-meeting guide, which is a very important document. So thank you.
Thanks, Anya. Any questions for clarification on that? It sounds really well prepared to me. And Anya, I really like how you are integrating the session and, using the pre-meeting guide and, trying to create more cohesion. And I noticed that it's early in the morning on the first day. So from a time zone perspective, it's going to be good for people from Asia, Pacific, Central Asia, Africa, Europe. Not so good for people in the Americas, but I think there's a way of sharing the recording with people. So I think that's and maybe thinking about how to make sure that we disseminate the fact that this recording will be available to other newcomers would be good to do. Any questions online? I'm just checking. No comments, no questions. Is there anything in the chat? Gunilla is asking, is it possible to raise a question about the new website and request for consideration of a short delay for it being made public next week? Yes, this is off agenda, but don't worry, Gunilla. I've noted that. I'm going to suggest that you and Louise talk about this directly, one-on-one, and then you can report back to us later. I'm assuming they have some suggestions that they want you to consider. So I think it might be difficult because the IGF Secretariat and UNDESA at the UK government, have all been working with the date on Monday. But let's give the Secretariat time.
But we'll still be able to make improvements as we go along.
Yeah.
So depending on how deep the improvements would be.
Absolutely. Did you hear that, Gunilla? So Shanghai is saying, while it might be not possible to delay the launch, modifications and improvements can be made. even immediately and the days subsequent to the launch. Okay, and Carol noted, and we look forward to seeing you later today. Just to look back now, Anya, I think we need to give the floor back to you, just to update everyone on the Youth Summit, if there's anything you haven't covered yet.
Yes, thank you very much. So yes, I'll be very brief on this. The Youth Summit, you've seen probably that it's scheduled to be on day 0, so again in a hybrid format. The working title as it stands now is Less Conversation, More Action, How Youth Could Find Space for Them in Policy-Making Processes, with a number of policy questions which will develop around this theme. But the idea is really to provide a space for young people from all parts of the world to speak about what are the potentials and challenges in internet governance processes they see, and from there hopefully to have some formed action points for senior stakeholders and leadership to address on a later stage after the IGF ends. So I'm happy to share a set of policy questions which are associated with the Youth Summit, but I won't be taking your time here. And in preparing the Youth IGF Summit, a number of webinars were already hosted in order to foster engagement, especially with underrepresented countries. But the next webinar that's going to be hosted to really introduce the concept of Youth Summit, the way how young people can participate, and especially its format, will be hosted in mid of October. So we will confirm the date, but around 15th of October will be hosted. And again, the idea through the Youth Summit goes really just beyond 2-hour session for young people. It also provides opportunity for us to empower the Polish Youth IGF as some sort of a local host for young people, which has a strong support from the Polish government as our host country. So colleagues from the Polish Youth IGF are very much involved in organization of the Youth Summit, with a strong support from the IGF Secretariat, the entire UN, of course the MAG, and the host country as such. And that's pretty much, I think, that I would like to inform of the Youth Summit. Some of the MAG members, including the MAG chair, may be contacted by the Polish Youth IGF with the idea of establishing a mentorship program in case some young people are in need for additional support on various internet governance topics to be made kind of known to them more closer. That mentors program is not directly, it's not under organization of the IGF Secretariat, but of course we are supportive toward the activities of the Polish Youth IGF, and it's basically their idea. And if there is any need from us to connect you with the Polish Youth IGF, we're happy to do so. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anya. I think that is it on the state of preparation. You covered opening and closing sessions yesterday. I think that if you have any further ideas or suggestions, I think when you go into your breakout groups, I will draft some questions for you, but I think if you could remember Adam's comments, because I think that we mustn't, the problem and the challenge for the MAG and the Secretariat and the host when we organize a huge event like this is that you can sometimes get lost in the detail and you forget the whole. And I think Adam's remarks earlier about really emphasizing what it means to have a hybrid meeting, what it means to have an IGF that's inclusive of people with different languages and different time zones, different abilities. I think it is important that we always then apply that big picture lens to all the specific activities that we are planning. But you can do that in your breakout groups. I'd now like to move on to agenda item number 2, and that is the update from the MAG working groups. And I want to start with the MAG working group on hybrid meetings. If we've heard a lot from them already, but Adam, Teresa, and others in that working group, do you have anything that you would like to add or report to the community and the MAG at this time? You have the floor.
I don't know. I don't think I need to say anything. Adam, confirm me if I'm wrong, because we covered quite a lot. maybe 2 points. I hope that by now all the MAC members have reviewed and consulted the frequently asked questions document. If not, please do so and help us kind of send a message across of the hybrid format and everything that comes with it. I have nothing else to add. I don't know if you do, Adam. I don't want to be repetitive here, because we covered quite a lot on Wednesday.
Thanks, Teresa. Adam, anything to add?
No, not at the moment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think there'll be an opportunity for you. I'm assuming that the next IGF newsletter can include the FAQs, and I think we've actually just touched on some of the ways to consolidate the work that you've done by including specific content in the training and in the guidelines. So let's go to the MAG working group on IGF strategy. We have one of the co-chairs here with us, Amrita Choudhury. Actually, we have two of the co-chairs. I'm not sure if TT is with us online. I know Livia can't be with us today, but Amrita, please go ahead and give us an update from the MAG working group strategy. I just want to, before you do that, because I haven't contextualized that, and I know we have some observers in the meeting, the MAG works both as a collective and then as working groups. And every year, the MAG forms working groups that take on sometimes tasks that are continuous. There's always a MAG workshop evaluation working group, which was facilitated by Roberto Zambrana this year. There's a MAG working group strategy, which takes more of a look at big picture issues and longer term issues. The MAG working group hybrid you've heard of, and later on you'll hear from the MAG working group on outreach and engagement. And this modality of MAG working groups is a very flexible tool. These are not always standing working groups. If a new need emerges, it can be taken on by either one of the existing working groups or by a new working group. So I just want to thank the MAG working groups because they are a very important component of the work that the MAG does. And for those of you that might not be aware of that, if you go to the IGF website, and if you actually click on the section on the link in the menus on the MAG, there you will find more information about the MAG working groups. And the other thing that's very significant about these working groups is that while they are led by MAG members, they are open to anyone in the community to participate in. So, Amrita, back to you.
Thank you, Henriette. Amrita, for the record. We have a presentation. I think Eleonora is going to get it on. So we are discussing the working group of IGF strategy, and yes, the next slide, please. So just as Henriette mentioned, who we are a group which was established in 2020 by the MAG, and the objective is to develop proposals and actions which are implementable in the short and medium term on how to strengthen the IGF and position it strategically. And the charter is available in the link with the scope, and this presentation would be available to all, so you can always click on these links and look at it. The next slide, please. So what we've been doing so far is in 2021, we shared a set of recommendations to the MAG in the form of proposals on strategic improvement to the IGF and operational measures in 2021 on how it can be more strategic, impactful and inclusive. So one of the issues which were highlighted was having issue teams, and the MAG adopted the issue-driven approach this year. And it was suggested that the issue teams are extended and open to non-MAG members and experts and representatives, which actually happened this year. The working group also had suggested to come up with a multi-year plan, so that key issues could be worked upon over the years to provide more continuity and engagement on topics which were discussed in the previous year to the next year, and create linkages between IGF and other institutions and decision-making bodies. And what we've done so far, we continue this, is like we collected feedback from MAG on how they would want the working group to work. And it showed that the MAG considers, the following activities to be important in a multi-year plan, such as implementation of the roadmap for digital cooperation, and what could be IGF's role in supporting this goal. How could IGF improve its communication and outreach, and strengthening the interaction between IGF and the international decision-making bodies, processes, etc. And what we are currently doing is we are trying to map the UN Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation and the activities which has happened in IGF. This is on the 8 areas. The mapping exercise is available in the link. The objective is to create more synergies and integration between IGF and the UN Secretary General's activity, and actually to show that, what have been the, contribution from the IGF, the BPFs, etc. It is a living document and it would keep on being updated. We would be sharing some kind of result with the MAG and IGF soon, but you're happy to go through it, and if you find some things which we have missed, please add them. So we've been looking at the IGF priority areas, and we had an action area selected on priorities by the working group for further action. And, one was strengthening the interaction between the IGF and decision-making bodies. So what was suggested is to integrate a multi-directional communication between IGF and decision-making bodies, to invite relevant decision-makers to use the IGF as a platform and encourage people to participate consistently. This is important, not for one time. Identify relevant decision-making bodies and try to communicate the work which is being done by the IGF, the BPFs, and highlight the messages which may be relevant to their area of activity, and try to engage relevant decision-making bodies proactively in the various intersessional work also. In that, there was also suggestion from the working group on improving the parliamentary track, and we also have the parliamentary track, MAG working group on parliamentary track, working with the UN DESA and IGF Secretariat to actually involve not only the host country parliamentarians, but also from across, to invite them, get commitment from the parliamentarians to discuss on specific issues, and establish a permanent team which can work with the MAG groups to involve the parliamentarians. And apart from what these activities, what we are trying to facilitate is support the MAG chair in co-organizing 2 sessions in the preparatory and engagement phase. One is on the 16 years of IGF evolution and strengthening, taking stock and looking forward. The other is the state of multi-stakeholder internet governance and IGF. We also want to discuss and collect comments on the recently released Common Agenda report from the UN Secretary General's Office, and look at ways in which we can support a multi-year plan. And the regular activities which we do is we have regular meetings where even the envoy on technology participates and provides update on the roadmap activities. As Henriette mentioned, anyone who is interested can join this working group. We've shared the link there. And if you find that there are some information which is useful and we could use, please do share with us. This is something which we had to share, and I have my colleague Roman here in case he wants to add. TT, I'm not sure if she's there. Okay, TT, please, if I've missed something, please do add it on. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Amrita. And just to note, the MAG chair is also co-organizing an event in the preparatory phase with the MAG working group on hybrid meetings, where we plan to bring together institutions like ICANN, RIPE NCC, the other number organizations, and RightsCon and so on. We want to bring together institutions and processes inside the internet governance space who've been working with online or hybrid meetings, just to capture and share what the experience of that has been. So thanks for reminding me. We forgot to mention that. Are there any, just before I open the floor, or actually ask Roman and Titi to add, you have no recommendations you're proposing to the MAG at this point, am I right?
No, not
Nothing
at this point of
specifically.
time. We are here to support in case the MAG needs us for anything in communication outreach for any of the activities. Roman has something to add there.
Yeah, dear colleagues, Roman Chukov, a MAC member for the record. But as we discussed yesterday, maybe there are ways to enhance and strengthen our, ways to promote IGF, and maybe this is something which we could emphasize a little bit more. So this is just the result of yesterday's deliberations. So I think we should just consider, and during the next working group meeting, we can allocate some time to discuss this.
Thanks. And that was not so much promotion in the way that the working group that Amado is chairing, which is the working group on outreach and engagement, I think that was really more about how to maintain awareness of the value and relevance of the IGF in an evolving internet governance ecosystem. Titi, did you want to add anything?
Yes, if I can add something. I think two recommendations are important. One is related to the multi-year plan. We discussed a lot yesterday. So having just one focus for this year, I think it could be important. And the second suggestion is related to the work that we have done on mapping the activity of the roadmap with the IGF activity. I think this could be further discussed during the IGF meeting on how the IGF could support it, could be integrated in the activity that are being done now, also for the report. I know there is a session that has been is been planning, the one on internet governance on the ecosystem. So maybe we can join the efforts and give more contribution to prepare a session that includes also the work that the working group strategy is doing in these weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Titi. And I think that I'm asking MAG members to take that consideration into account. I mean, maybe the Digital Cooperation Issue Team, I know they're thinking of focusing on the common agenda, which I think makes a lot of sense. But the Digital Cooperation Issue Team also has a session in the preparatory phase. So there are two opportunities really to look at that. And I think we could also cover that, or some of that, in the that session that we are co-organizing for the preparatory phase on the IGF, the strategic positioning of the IGF. Are there any comments or any questions from anyone for the MAG working group strategy? Nothing at this point. So just before we go on to the MAG working group, Giacomo, please go ahead.
Yes, my question is very simple, is all these interesting suggestions coming from this group, some of them could be implemented by us. It's only a MAG decision that need to be taken. We don't have to wait for the rest of the world. So why we don't start implementing some of them? The idea that we were wondering yesterday, for instance, to make a test about a topic that we could, one or more topic that we could decide to be the focus of this year IGF, and start to see how it works and refine through the experience the work. Why we have not to implement? There is any technical problem? We need authorization by somebody, by the Pope, by the. So why we don't start?
Look, my response to that will be you're absolutely correct. You don't have to wait. I think it's a question of timing. That document that we are referring to, the issue-driven approach that the MAG working group strategy released, was actually only made public this year in January, I think. By that time, the Secretariat had already shared the call for input, because the Secretariat has to, also follow a timeline, which they've experimented for many years, and they have a schedule. So I think it's just a case of anticipating that. And also the new MAG had just come in, and there was a very big rotation in the MAG. So most of the MAG members of this year were still not that aware, or many of them were not actually that aware of what had emerged from the MAG working group strategy process. So Giacomo, my point would be, or my suggestion would be to the MAG working group strategy, is that if you would like to see the 2022 MAG, you'll have a new MAG, but a lot of overlap. You'll have a new MAG chair, and you'll probably know by the time we go to the annual forum, who the new MAG members are, who the new MAG chair is, and initiate that discussion about how to approach the issue focus in 2022 as early as possible. I think that's what my proposal would be, because I think, IGF timing has its own, it has its cycle, it has its timetable, and I think that can sometimes make long-term planning quite difficult, because you do sort of start afresh every year. And I think if you want to prevent that, consider how to approach focus in 2022 before the end of 2021, and liaise with the Secretariat on how to approach that call for issues. So but I think in principle you're absolutely right. There are definitely recommendations in that document that can be implemented by the MAG. I think the other thing that held it back a little bit this year was that the MAG only formally discussed and endorsed those recommendations at the first MAG meeting and open consultation, which took place in February. So I think that was the other lesson learned from the working group strategy. Be sure to present your proposals as a MAG working group to the rest of the MAG, and to get formal approval and endorsement from them. I think that that happened this year, but it happened a little bit later than it could have happened. I hope that helps, Giacomo.
I'm sorry, the microphone. The microphone, sorry.
Sorry, I want to ask the Secretariat, before we move on to the working group on outreach and engagement, we have questions in the chat about language. This question relates to both the languages in which the website is made available, as well as how the IGF, the hybrid IGF, is responding to language diversity. So I would like to ask the Secretariat just to update everyone on what facilities are built into the process for that.
I'll just start off with just talking about languages in general. We have tried over the years to accommodate different languages as far as the 6 UN languages are concerned. Of course, this comes at a cost, and it also comes at a high cost. Well, let me not say high cost, but it comes at a cost, because if we put resources in one area, that means those resources are not directed into another area. So it's how to balance the budget, so to speak. And over the years, we've had MAG meetings that are in the 6 UN languages, in the 2 UN languages. There was a time that we had it in English and French because those are the 2 working languages of where the Secretariat is based, and that is in Geneva. And we've had an analysis as well of who's been using those languages. And when we've had MAG meetings, we've seen that, even though there's a lot of French speaking people, everybody speaks in English. And it was very hard to justify over the years that we should have these languages when we can do an analysis afterwards who's been listening in what language, and we find that most people have been listening in English. So should we still do it in English and French, or put it into another? I mean, those are ongoing questions. As far as the website is concerned, we are having it in the 6 UN languages, and Lewis has been also being in charge and overseeing the translation of key documents into the 6 UN languages. And for this, we've been asking for volunteers, and we've had varied success in this. I mean, we've had a lot of documents that have been translated, and we're very thankful to former host countries. I know Egypt did some translations, and also other countries like UAE as well did some Arabic translations, and also individuals also did translations into Chinese, etc. And the group has been, and this has been also checked by other speakers of that language to check that it is correct. But using the UN language services is not that easy for us because, first of all, we're extra budgetary and we always come last in the queue, and we also have to pay quite a lot of money for this translation. So we're using the community to translate these documents. And I think it has worked quite well for some of the key documents. But for this website, we are going to be using translation services as well to translate the content, and we have a disclaimer. I'll let Lewis speak a little bit more about that. For the preparatory phase, we have not had many languages. For the parliamentary section, because we've had some donations for that, we are having it in the 3 languages, English, French and Spanish for the parliamentary track, just to encourage parliamentarians from all around the world. But unfortunately for the other tracks in the preparatory phase, we are unable to do that at the moment. At the IGF 2021, of course, everything in the main room is going to be interpreted into the 6 UN languages, and the Polish Parliament is also providing the 6 UN languages for the parliamentary track. So thank you for that. But let me just put it on to Lewis just to see if I've missed anything out and if he wants to add anything on that.
No, thank you, Chengeta. I think that you have gone well through all the parts that we can do, which is the written translation, the different interpretations. Wherever we can, with the resources we have, we put interpretation. We have to announce that not only in languages, but this year we will also put sign interpretation, international sign interpretation for accessibility in the opening and closing ceremonies and satellite events. Of course, if we could do more, we would do more. We would support when there is sign interpretation for different meetings, so requesting as well. And as Chengeta said, also for the translation of the website, this new website is a great advance because it's fully translated in the 6 UN languages, also using today's technology, artificial intelligence, as has been requested by Karim's MAC member before. Now we consider that technology is mature, and we just disclaim the possibility of small errors, but I, for example, just check in Spanish and really the translation is very, very, very good. And the same with the documents that Chengetai said, and I want to finish just saying that that does not prevent us to try to continue improving. There are always ways to improve. You know that, for example, for accessibility, and there is now automatic transcription that still is not perfect. It will be never like human transcription, as it will never be the same on-site participation that the human touch, that not being with human touch. It will be never perfect, but the automatic translation of, for example, the chats in the online platforms is already ongoing. So even if this year we cannot have all these tools, I hope that year after year we are continue improving the multilingualism at the IGF. Multilingualism accessibility is very, very important at the IGF. Thank you for that.
I'd just like to add one more thing. For Day Zero events and some of the networking events, they can be done in other languages as well. So we have that.
And during the preparatory phase as well, any of the community-organized events in the preparatory phase can be in any language that the organizers would like it to be. Karim, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karim Atoumani, MAG member, for the record. I have 3 points. First of all, I'd like to know exactly, as the IGF is a process. The IGF is not only the December meeting. So if we ensure that we will have a lot of translation at the end of the year, it's intended for who? For which people? As most of people who will be interested to join, maybe they didn't know what we are doing. I'm exaggerating, but I think that we need to pay attention on the way that if we intend any translation facility at the end of the year, we need to ask ourselves for which communities, for which people we plan it. And most of the time, the response is about budget. And we need to ask again, who is doing this prioritization? In which basis we can say we're going to prepare the IGF in English. We call all people to join, to be involved, but we do it only in English. And at the end of the year, we say we will have facilities, translation facilities. Last year, while we work at the language working group, which I'm co-chair, we tried to identify where it was set up that the IGF should be done in English. So I think that we need to do reflection, because we can make effort to involve people, to encourage people to join, but people come, and if you have to follow what others are doing, you can't imagine the effort we have to put to understand what others are doing by the translation. And most of people will refuse to be engaged, because they will say, I can't speak English, and there is any facilities during the process. So I will be here just to hear others, and I think it's not a good thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Karim. Really noted that is a really major challenge for the IGF. I just want to share one thing that I learned from 2020, when we had the MAG working group on language diversity that Karim chaired. We organized an online discussion, an online consultation. And I think one of the points that was made, well, there were two things that I think that really stand out for me. The one is that the IGF uses its relationship with the UN as one of its success factors, its prestige and legitimacy. It gives the IGF a lot of legitimacy that it's part of the UN. And therefore, the fact that the IGF is not consistently able to communicate and disseminate information in UN languages does detract from that a little bit. So I think that is really a serious consideration. Shanghai said, however, that the IGF is extra budgetary, so that really challenges the IGF. But I think it's something to consider in the longer term budgeting and planning. And then the second point that came home to me in those discussions, Karim, were that when we look at linguistic diversity in the IGF, we need to look at the IGF as a whole. And we need to look at the diversity that the NRIs facilitate. And in some ways, you can be much more impactful and inclusive by using the NRIs as platforms for engaging people in IGF discussions in other languages and in other parts of the world. So I thought that was also quite helpful. That we acknowledge that even though there isn't always translation into every language, because there are more languages in the world than UN languages, and the NRIs are actually a way of reaching people in all those other languages.
Oh yes, I'd just like to also put my appreciation to the national and regional initiatives as well, because they have provided some translation for the IGF website. So thanks to them, and I would just like to acknowledge them for that too.
I'm struggling to press my button properly today. Apologies. I'm just looking at the chat and more comments about language. And yes, I think good challenging questions. So I think we should note these questions, and we're about to break out into groups, and I've structured the questions for the groups in such a way that some of these questions can also be addressed in the breakout groups. So I will now try to share my screen. Okay, can you all see that? We now have, it's 11:26 Geneva time, and I'd like you to break up again into two groups, the way in which we did it yesterday, which were the people who are here in Geneva have the wonderful opportunity of going outside and standing in the Geneva sunshine. And those of you that are virtual can stay in your homes. You can have a cup of tea or coffee and talk to one another. So two groups again, as we did yesterday. And really, if you can think back on the discussion this morning, the presentations from the Secretariat, but also the discussion in the first 2 days of the open consultation and the first day of the MAG meeting, and then just come up with very specific proposals. Two responses, two areas of response. Firstly, specific, achievable, please be realistic. Oh, we haven't got, sorry, Shingatai has just alerted me to the fact that we haven't had the communication strategy. Thanks, I'm so sorry, and I see the MAG members in the room are looking at me with concern. So, but let me complete this, because then I've completed the outline of the exercise, and then we'll go back and listen to the communication strategy and the working group on outreach and engagement, and then you'll break out and discuss these questions. And then secondly, any suggestions you might want to make. I'm following up here specifically on Giacomo's input for consideration by the Secretariat and the MAG for 2022. So that's a talk about specific achievable suggestions for 2021 based on the Secretariat inputs, the MAG working group inputs, including the MAG working group on outreach and engagement, which we'll hear just now, and then for consideration for 2022. So my sincere apologies, Amado, Eleonora. Please can you now go ahead and present the proposals and plans for IGF 2021 communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very pleased to having the opportunity to share with you some of the conclusions from the working group so far, in which I want to thank the Secretariat for all his support and all the members of this working group, looking forward how to provide the IGF with the best communications and outreach strategy possible. On behalf of Courtney, Raj, and myself, who are co-chairing this working group, we have so far proposed following objectives. First of all, to enhance the visibility of IGFs, to improve internal and external communications. That means how actually can we help the whole organization, the Secretariat, the MAC, to be part of the global context in terms of be a key decision maker in terms of how to further discuss to keep internet free and inclusive for everybody. Second objective is to define a specific and successful strategy which can be implemented immediately. That means for 2021, but looking also, as you already mentioned, at the middle term. That means 2022, 2023, in which we can also enhance some strategies or some activities which could help the first objective to be fulfilled. Can we go to the strategy document, please? In this document, which is going to be available for all of you, we are looking for specifics. That means how are we going to address the gaps already existing in the communication strategy, as we have learned from the different participants at this third consultation. There is a need to integrate and unify the communications strategy, and for that purpose we have we are suggesting right now these different 4 phases work that can be accomplished, in which time frame, and which will be the key responsible for all of those activities. And we also define the time frame in which they have to be fulfilled. That means in terms of the 2021 event, and also the trying to keep an ongoing work for the 2022 meeting, for which we really want to have a properly on time strategy for communications. And certainly that could also apply for Japan for the 2023. We do not have to wait until the 2022 event takes place, but maybe we can start doing something also in this regard, helping people or helping the society to be aware that they can participate in the long run, and that the preparation of the sessions, the workshops, or whatever possibility they foresee to be part of the IGF can be included into the a regional area or into a specific topic or a specific issue or a specific activities, politically speaking. Can we continue with the presentation, please? You can, of course, take a look at this at this document. It's also, of course, a living one in which the all feedback from the different groups will be very welcome. Third objective is how to strengthen the collaboration, as you already said, and also my other colleagues before me emphasized. We from the working group on strategy, how can we strengthen the collaboration with the UN ecosystem? That means, of course, all the outputs from the strategic working group will be very welcome to us, and certainly we will take advantage of the outputs or the conclusions of these meetings, and we would like to make them public, and we would like to make the participants in these committees to keep on working together, and also having some public information for the rest of the members, and also perceived as a value added for new members, new country members, and new organizational institutional members who want to join the IGF as such. And also we want to certainly convoke or to make a call, an open call to different communities and organizations to realize how important it is to have a common ground, a common place to further discuss the different issues that they are already dealing with at the different regions. And we think it's really a great opportunity for all of us to come to attend these meetings in a hybrid or in a hybrid format, to discuss what our concerns are. I mean, of course, we are suggesting right now specific issues, but there are many others that are also important, and certainly we look forward how to support these initiatives. And we would like to work on a global repository for this communication strategy. That means we want to work together with the Secretariat in order to define a proper database which can be used for the current MAC members or institutions who are observers, active observers right now, and for the future ones who will look at the IGF not only as the most important event, but also as a very important hub organization who can help this collaborative agenda to be a reality. Next one, please. And for that purpose, we are suggesting a methodology, a communications methodology, which can be certainly also consulted at the web, in which we want to work for the so-called micro-targeting strategy to point to the specific organizations with relevant specific messages for each of them, not to have just one for everybody, one size fits all, but a specific interest of each one of those groups, which have shouldn't be probably not more than we already have defined by the Secretariat, but maybe we can be just a little bit more specific in terms of how to approach the academia, but it is not the same working in a public university or in a research center or in a private one, and maybe we can send different kind of messages as well for the public sector. It's not the same the legislative power as the executive one or the judicial one. Then they have different needs. They are really longing for some guidance, and if we just can fit the need with the offer available by the MAC, I think we can make a very good job for both sides, for the users and for the IGF as such. Also to prepare a joint strategy, we heard from the LOC, from the Polish LOC, that they are trying to focus on a strategy locally in their country and also probably in the European region. But it has to be, if it is a global event, it has to be a joint strategy, and then we would like to find those partners who can really help us in this regard. Certainly the UN, as yesterday we learned, they have a great experience approaching the media and the press, key players, and we would like to take advantage of those relationships and certainly to add whatever is right now available at the internet and at the electronic marketing strategies. Next one, please. The plan of action. Here we do have some recommendations for the MAC and for the Secretariat in terms of how can we really work on a shared narrative which would be certainly coherent with this new initiative of working based on issues. I think all those working groups related to these issues can provide us with the specific input that they think it's important, it's relevant to send to those specific groups. And if they think some activations could be also part of the strategy, will be very helpful to learn, let's say, a very small clip from one of the key presenters or the keynote speakers, and a couple of specific ideas as a summary of what the participants are expected or can be expecting to learn at the meeting will be very, very helpful, and certainly we can take advantage of it. And of course, as you already mentioned and read, the IGF is part of a process, and then of course we do have to have a master plan for a project management organization in which we can work together with this project that we define together, where the communication strategy can start properly on time. It will be certainly really appreciated that if our colleagues from Ethiopia will be here at this point of time, and we could start discussing with them what will be the best strategy for us to go in Africa, which they are probably expecting 50% at least of the participants coming from the different countries there. And well, how can we help them right now? How can we help them during the 2021 event? And so on. And the same thing should happen with Japan in the next event. We shouldn't wait until 2 months before or 70 days before the event to foster this strategy, but we can start right now properly on time, because we already know who are the players, and that will help also the LOC to be better prepared for that. Besides that, yes, we want to ask for the MAC community to help us to find who are the key decision makers in their communities. We would like to work very close together with ANIA to approach the NRIs in order for us to ask for their support on the local, on each local IGF organization in each region, in each country, and to learn, okay, which organization will be the best ones to be approached, And where our understanding is, our hope is that having a personalized communication from the IGF will help those local organizations to learn that we are caring for them and that we are waiting for their feedback and waiting to learn how can we better help them during the event and based on the different other groups and documents available at the organization. And this is an open call for all MAC current and past MAC members to help us to find out those organizations and those contact persons, and certainly that should be part of a ongoing work that we have to implement. Next one, please. And how to make the difference right now? We really want to understand how can we move forward. I mean, if you will certify the methodology of the IGF right now, and you apply any quality management system like Six Sigma or whatsoever, all the processes inside the organization should be already organized, documented, with some people responsible to update them, and so on and so on. And those documents should be available for the MAC members and certainly for the Secretariat staff. And I think in order to build up these communications and outreach strategy properly, trying to fulfill the interest from the different participants, I think it would be a very good practice that we can document the processes inside the MAC and also the project management document, which should fit the different strategies like this one for outreach, communication, and engagement, and where we can eventually, not this year, but maybe next one, to define a couple of KPIs to learn how good we are performing in terms of gathering all the different communities together, and how are we able to deliver the message. We do not want to become the best secret, the best kept secret in the world. We want to make public all this huge work that is already undergone from the different standpoints of the MAC members and the UN offices that supporting the IGF. And the last one, I think, yes. For that purpose, I want to emphasize our call for our invitation to all current and former MAC members to help us to try to build up this database. We want to define this database in a matricial form in which we can make the segmentation of all the contacts that we are going to have there. If we can take a look, please, at the format. This format is going to be available at the web, and you can take a look at and ask your contact people to start filling out those contacts. One of the requirements that we do have is that your organization or all the contacts that you're going to include in the list, you are authorized to share them with us. Please go back, Eleonora, at the yes, a little bit more. And we are emphasizing here, yes, there we are emphasizing here that it is very important that you are allowed to share those contacts with us, because we are talking about the UN database, which should be properly populated, but we do not want to have any possible problem regarding the use of this public data. Okay, then this is also an open document. It is going to be uploaded in the IGF site. We can go back to the presentation, please. And we want to ask all the communities to join us in this effort to prepare this database, which should be a very, very active one with all the input from all the possible sources that we have available. And I want to finalize by telling you that we want to welcome not only this kind of information. We would like to. We will be very happy to have some feedbacks from the communities in terms of the success stories related to the internet governance, and what do they have found as a challenge, and what do they think it's a very important issue that which has not been solved at their places. It comes, of course, from the infrastructure till the use of the cryptocurrencies or the cyber crimes or whatsoever. But in all this range, we will be very happy to receive your feedback in related to those specific practices from internet, which will be interesting to learn to other countries, or from your side to ask for another opinion in our communities, and that this becomes the new virtual village that IGF is trying to build, and becoming this an ongoing program with a specific agenda addressed to the different issues groups. And well, the presentation will be also available for you to look at any time, and we appreciate the opportunity and be very, very glad to get your feedback. I thank again Courtney and Eleonora for all their tremendous support, and June, who has been also very helpful with her with her experience, and all other MAC members who have helped to figure out which would be the best proposal. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Amado, and thanks for an excellent proposal. So really, I echo your thanks to Courtney and June and others, and to Eleonora for her work on this. I think this is a really long-term view on IGF strategic communications, which I think is going to and I urge everyone who is working on the IGF next year to use this as a resource. But let's open it to the floor for questions or reactions to this. I know you'll talk about it in the breakout groups, but let's first have some discussions now. Any questions, any comments? And Amado, you're getting very positive comments in the chat as well. People are saying, great presentation. It reflects the goals and the discussion. And there's also a request for where this will be found. The presentations will all be on the meeting page, Wout. You'll be able to find it there. And as for your suggestion or asking to sign up, please do sign up to this working group. You can see now what a fantastic working group it is. So people, please do sign up to it. Eleonora has just posted the link to where you can find the presentation. Amrita, please go ahead. You've asked for the floor.
Thank you, Henriette. Amrita, for the record, I echo what you mentioned. As a long-term strategy, it's excellent, especially linking the next IGF and the other host countries. It would weave into the long-term strategy. I'll focus on the short-term strategy, that is this IGF 2021. Are we also looking at, for example, mapping, the existing NRIs which we have, or the countries where we have some kind of people with whom we can spread the communication vis-a-vis some areas which are completely gap? This I'm coming from my APR IGF hat, where we did this kind of an exercise wherein we tried to see where we are not getting people from at all. And we found certain areas, and we tried to do some specific activities out there to get at least some, like Kazakhstan or Mongolia or something. I guess if we have some kind of a sheet wherein we have the countries and we have the NRIs there, they are the first contact who can help spread the message and identify where the gaps are. And then perhaps we, the MAG members or others who may have contact there, can help in reaching out. And I think one discussion which had happened is we don't have much people from media coming, and I think Courtney was working on it. Perhaps then we can also suggest whom from media we could share. If there's a country-wise mapping also, it may help us also to reflect faster. I don't know whether it's possible at the last moment or not, but if we want specific targets for 2021 December, we need to act smart and not build on what is already there with the IGF MAG, what is being, IGF Secretariat, which is doing, not reinventing the wheel.
Thanks, Amrita. Do you want to respond to that, Shanghai and Anya? Wim, I know you've asked for the floor, but if they can just quickly respond to that, because there is an existing contact database and a new section on NRIs.
Yes. Again, I would like to join everybody else and congratulate you on the presentation and the hard work that has all gone into it. And as Annie said, yes, it's very good to have a long-term plan as well. And we will be looking at it very, very carefully and discussing it amongst ourselves with UNDESA and also with our UN communications team there as well. And yes, we have a contact sheet there on our website, and we also have the organizations that have also shown interest in previous IGFs, which we will also include into that contact database. I think that's all I can say for the moment. Anya? Mm-hmm.
Yes, in addition to a rich database of contacts, the IGF said what Chengetai mentioned, for the NRIs, we do keep a continuously updated database of contacts of the coordinators and members of the organizing committee. And that's as far as it goes. But across the NRIs, I spoke to Amado informally, there are excellent practices on how they exercise their communication and outreach activities. I mean, Amrita mentioned the APR IGF. French IGF, Lucien was telling me yesterday, have basically a PR agency that does a very good job for them. And so it's a very nuanced ecosystem in that regard. But the IGF Secretariat has that, as I said, database. We're more than happy to connect you to the coordinators, and then the communication would need to go from there in terms of getting additional contacts in their local communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Anya. Wim.
Thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations for the presentation. I have been involved in similar initiatives or exercises in the past, and I know how easy it is to start thinking about communication and how quickly it becomes very complex and difficult to even start to mapping and thinking what you want to do. So that's definitely an excellent presentation of work that has been done. But the point I wanted to make is a point that was made yesterday, I think in the afternoon during the discussion. It was not made by me, but underline again the importance between a communication and a communication strategy on the one hand, and the whole thinking about reporting and reflecting the outcomes on the other hand. I think in the past sometimes things have been mixed up, and that make it even complex to deal with, but also complex, I think, for the outside. And I think it's really good that there is not only the MAG, but also the colleagues in the Secretariat, the people in DESA,
that are working on communication. They should be the ones that can use what comes out of the whole strategy about documentation and the process of documentation. So, but the two should not be mixed up. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Wim, and for these questions. I have lots of suggestions. I won't make them because we're going to break out into groups now. And I think that, in fact, this proposal actually includes several suggestions for longer-term consideration. So let's take the time now. We have an hour left. I suggest that the groups talk for 40 minutes and that we are back in this room at 22:01 Geneva time to hear the reports from the two groups. And I'll put on screen again the questions. I had put them in the chat as well. There they are. So based on these plans presented by the Secretariat, the MAG working groups, including the working group on outreach and engagement, the communication strategy they presented, do you have specific, and really try and be specific, suggestions which you would like to propose for the short term and the longer term? So for 2021 IGF, you can reflect on the preparatory phase, the website, the planned session organizer, training and engagement, the annual forum, and then secondly, the 2022 process. So please assign your rapporteur at the beginning of your breakout so that they know they have to take notes. And I look forward to seeing you back here in the room to start our reports at 22:01 Geneva time.
Hello, is there anybody there?
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Can we put the question back up on the screen?
Oh, sorry, Carol, I'm not in the room.
Okay.
It's in the chat, Carol. Have a
Oh,
look
it's
in
in
the
the
chat.
chat? Okay.
It's in the
Okay.
chat, yes.
Yeah.
If nobody
Okay.
chats, then we're fine.
All right. I see it.
Vote, I can't hear you. Can everyone else, can you all hear one another?
We can hear you, Henriette.
And
We can hear
someone
you.
responded to me, so I think that I must have been heard as well.
Yes, you were.
So can you hear me, Henriette?
Yes,
Apparently
I
not.
could hear you.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I could hear you.
So who else is here? We're now with 3.
Okay, it's me. Also, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Yuta. How are you?
Hello, Titi.
I'm
Nice to see
also
you.
here. Sorry.
Did I hear Yuta just now?
No,
It
it's
was
me. It's me.
Titi.
Titi, how are you, June?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so
Today.
yeah, I was just thinking to the IGF processes for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it could be very useful to share with a database or in some other way to have a visibility of the link of the people who are participating to IGF that are also involved, for instance, in the G20. No, I think this could be very useful to understand, to have a visibility of this information, because in this way you can immediately know how IGF is linked to the G20 or to the other important events. I mean, this could be useful, and also to engage this institution, events, and processes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I find with the IGF that the groups are all separate. For example, the dynamic coalitions, they think they're separate from the IGF, but they don't understand that they are a part of the IGF and they should actually take part in some of the things that the IGF is promoting. They see themselves as separate, and they're outside of it, and then they come and they do a presentation on the day, and after that there's nothing. So I'm really hoping that all the groups will unite and make the process a lot simpler and easier for everyone that is involved.
I'm here as a Dynamic Coalition coordinator, so that's one.
So you understand do you understand what I'm trying to say? No, I'm not sure. What's your
I'm not only understanding, I think that I can say that a lot of what we're discussing today was initiated by the report I sent in 2 years ago, because it's totally reflected on almost all points. But having said that, there's another side to it as well, June.
Yeah.
Because on the first day, I asked the MAG that I seriously need help to make this dynamic coalition a success. And I was rebuffed by Henriette in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know
So
that side. I understand that side of it as well.
So in other words, it has to be an interaction, because I started this dynamic coalition to show that it could actually be a success in the way that the IGF Plus is going to be developed, and this is happening because some volunteers are doing amazing work, except that we do not attract the real experts. And the real experts are part of the communities and the stakeholder communities that are at the IGF. They're within governments, they're within industry, they're within etc. But I've got some funding, and I'm pretty unique in that I understand that I got external funding to do this work, but I can't be begging the whole world the whole day to join this dynamic coalition if they don't understand what is behind it. And here's where I think what we're discussing now becomes extremely important on the micro targeting that was presented on just now, is that when I reach out to industry, for example, for industry representative organizations, I literally get back, well, you're just talking about a talk shop, so why should I ever put a second of my time in there? Because nothing comes out of it. And I can explain that we're working together towards outcomes, but if they don't understand that, they're not going to join. And the same is very difficult to get people from government involved, because they remain aloof to this process for understandable reasons, because they represent the minister, they represent the policy the minister wants its government is trying to achieve. That makes it hard to have open discussions. But that is the sort of difficulty that the IGF in general is facing. And next to that, we hear from the technical community for years, there's really nothing for us to do at the IGF anymore. Some still show up, but you can see that their interest has sort of disappeared in really making something happen at the IGF. So that is something that we need to address in an extremely serious way in the messages that we are discussing right now. Let me stop there for now and see what you think and your experiences are.
I think it's not only a problem to address this inside the IGF. It's also a problem related to the power. I don't know if I can use the right word, the power IGF has to do it. And to do it, I think it's important that the IGF assume more power from the UN Secretary General on these issues. I don't know if I can transfer the right concept, because IGF can also address, but maybe IGF doesn't have the power. So who can give the power to IGF to address, to engage world government? I think the only one that could do it is the UN Secretary General, try to elevate the IGF and to have the IGF the central point of digital policy discussion. This is the main problem, because I mean, there are so many initiatives, they are not connected. And you are at the beginning a little bit confused. So, because after the long discussion, this so important elements that came on the IGF discussion, what are the consequences of this discussion? The news, the communication, it's important, but there is nothing that is applied at global and regional level. I mean, maybe they are applied, but it's not so evident that all the things that are coming from the discussion could have an impact on the global and the regional level. I think this is the main problem. This is what I think.
If I can, it's Adam. Hi, just to jump in there. I've felt for a very long time, and particularly now as a MAG member, that the IGF has never, except perhaps when Nitin Desai was working closely with Kofi Annan, because they had a personal relationship, it's never really had the full weight of the United Nations and the Secretary General's office behind it. Of course, there are things like the roadmap, which changes it, but the IGF, I don't think, has ever had the SG telling people, this is important to me, I want you to be involved. He meets with business leaders, he meets with governments, he meets with civil society, but I don't think civil society necessarily needs a greater boost, but perhaps it does. And it would be just very nice if somebody from his office could include a line in some of his meeting notes, speaking notes. By the way, the IGF is something that I think is important. You will see my work on the roadmap. You will see why I think it's important. Would you consider participating, please? It's a very simple bullet point to a set of talking points that he will be using every day. And I don't think we've ever had that. And it's low cost. It costs absolutely nothing to do that. And very often, a lot of issues around the IGF are around cost funding. This is something you can do for absolutely free if he wants to do it, if the office wants to do it. It would have an impact on business, it would have a business impact on governments, it would have an impact on IGOs. So I would just say, use is bully pulpit the right word? Use the status and stature of the office of the UN Secretary General to do simply many of the things that we're talking about, which is say, I would like you to participate. I don't know if that's diplomatically or politically problematic, but that is something that I felt for the last 20 years, I think it is. Is it almost 20? No, 15 years. So anyway, that's my thought. The rest of us can do a lot of things, but that office has the power to do more than any of us could do, I think. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, can I just ask a question? we've been going on for so many years, and well, I'm new to this. What does it take for the office to recognize the importance of the IGF? I mean, what other type of advisory group gets the attention that we're not getting? What are they doing that we're not doing?
I've got one question to Adam on the roadmap, and then I'll try and answer yours, and then see what others think. Adam, with the roadmap, I've got the idea that is being advertised, and there's a tech envoy or coming to be a new tech envoy. So isn't it the IGF already being advertised more continuously from the UN than before? But I don't know. I'm not in that process, and I think with other UN organizations, I don't know who asked the question because I've got mostly the screen on my of the whatever, doesn't matter. It's all the text that is on there. Most UN the departments are official, so they have members and etc. So they have of all sort of official communications, and the IGF is not official. It's a project organization with a secretariat. Basically, I think is the best description. And that makes it so hard because there's no continuous funding for the IGF, etc. And we're discussing the whole day things that are important, but somehow we can't get the funding from countries and organizations to actually make it happen. That there is a translation, that there's a etc. So I think that is a major difference between the IGF and all the other UN organizations that exist, despite the fact that most of them have financial burdens as well to carry. Adam, can you answer the question? And do others have other ideas on this?
I mean, I can't really answer the question. I can give a point of view, which is, that of course, we see the roadmap. We've seen documents that were sent out, and there was a new document that was presented to the General Assembly last week. The development of the compact, where the IGF is mentioned, etc., etc. But I'm not really talking about that. The UN publishes document after document after document, and they're 73 pages or 120 pages long, and I don't know how seriously those are taken. People read them, researchers read them. No, I'm talking about something that's just a little bit simpler, which is the Secretary General uses the power of his office to say at the end of a meeting, oh, and by the way, there's this thing called the IGF. It's important to me. Would you take a look? It's in the briefing note. I mean, it could be just as simple as that. I mean, it could be 2 lines to say it's a multi-stakeholder process that I convene, and it, discusses all these digital issues that we've just had a long conversation about. Why don't you consider participating? I mean, it doesn't have to be power. It doesn't have to be a powerful message. It's a message from one of the most known and powerful men in the world. And as I've said before, unfortunately, it is a man. So there you go. We can just assume that, and it probably will be for a long time. But just get the message out there. If it's important, that is so low cost. But there is, of course, a diplomatic cost, which I have no clue about because that's not something that I'm involved with. But there's a political cost. So that's what I'm just trying to say. The rest of it, you're absolutely right. Interpretation and translation is incredibly expensive, and the IGF is an unfunded mandate. So how do you deal with that? I think is a different question. I can say that ICANN is supporting the interpretation for some of the preparatory meetings for the parliamentarians, but resources are limited. So that's just one example, because ICANN likes the IGF, so we'll help when we can. But that's not something that is sustainable because it's, whenever a new project comes up, new activity comes up, someone in the Secretariat says, help somebody, can you help us with whatever it is? that's not long-term sustainability. So it's just relying on what we rely on now, which is volunteerism, individual, organisation, or whatever. Anyway, so that's my thought. My point is there an opportunity to ask the Secretary General Office to leverage the influence and power that he has in supporting the IGF in what I think is a very simple way? But I do understand there may be political, diplomatic reasons for not doing so.
We can ask. Is that simple? I'm making some notes, so we didn't discuss who leads the session or is making notes, but I decided to start writing a little. So perhaps I can share some of the thoughts after this session. But if somebody else volunteers, that's fine as well, of course. There's one comment I would like to make, and then I'll start looking at point 1 and number 2, so that we have some answers. I was in a meeting fairly recently on UN processes, and there was the led by the French digital ambassador, and he was talking the whole time. We need a multi-stakeholder body where we can discuss all things around the internet and etc. etc. And then I asked in the chat, because we could not ask questions, I asked in the chat, have you ever heard of the IGF? And he had no clue. And it is somebody who's working in the UN process, and the UNGG and whatever they're called, open-ended working groups. And he had never heard of the IGF. So in other words, he was calling for a new body for multi-stakeholderism to discuss internet governance in that working group. And that's apparently also in a report that he's writing. So I notified Shanghai saying, I think you better reach out to the French government, because it's sounding a bit ridiculous. But the fact is that even at that level, people don't have a clue that this body exists and that you can use it for multi-stakeholder issues, which you can then bring back to the UN, where in the end only member states have a say. So that was a tremendously learning lesson for me, that even at that level, they had no clue.
And on the top, from the former host country.
From a former host country, right. So Shanghai was going to reach out and see if anybody was still working at the foreign department that they were in contact with for 2017, because the ambassador went to Afghanistan. He's probably back since a couple of weeks, but we all know how that ended. But let's look at question 1, because we have only 20 minutes left. Are there any concrete suggestions to share on the IGF 2021 process, and then finally to the 2022 process on the basis of what we've just heard in the presentations? It remains very silent. Does it mean that we all agree with what we heard, and that will be sufficient for 21, sorry?
I have a comment about a sort of transition between 21 and 22, which was something Henriette mentioned. She was talking about how, there is a calendar, a flow of activity that the Secretariat initiates and we respond to. We have, you know what's going to happen. There will be some form of taking stock after the IGF in Katowice. There will be a review early in the year. There will be new MAG members announced and joining. I'm actually going out of the calendar sequence here, but you know what I mean. We will hold the first consultation in February, perhaps March. We will blah, blah, we will have a call for workshops. We will do this, we will do that. I would suggest that, so people know where their input points are to this discussion or this process, because it's the public input that is essential to making it work, that if this calendar were absolutely known or better known, then those opportunities would be understood. So perhaps at the end of the IGF 2021, that is announced, it's made clear, and perhaps not at the end, perhaps it could be in some other part so that it's more prominent. Let people know what the opportunities for input would be, what the process throughout the year would be, so that if a working group has a recommendation, the recommendation can go in a week before, not a week after, for example. That's all.
Yes, and I made a comment in the chat, and perhaps we can reflect on that as well, because Giacomo said, why don't we decide now? And Henriette said, but we can't make decisions for the new MAG. But my experience with MAG meetings in January, February, or March is that the focus pretty fast goes to, we have to organize a new meeting. And a lot of the working groups, the MAG working groups results sort of seem to disappear. And that is the fear you have with the strategy working group, which I participated in what's called then the multi-year whatever. But the report just disappeared. And so there was no decision at the final MAG meeting before the IGF. It was not discussed at the IGF. And the working group stopped, so it sort of disappeared in the process without having any decision on it. And I think that is a fear that happens each year because we have a new meeting to organize, and there's only 8 months left, or 6 or 7. So in other words, how can the MAG come to a decision after the process of a whole year, because it's now in front of us? And if the chair says, yes, but we can't decide on it because there's a new MAG coming in, perhaps decisions are never made. And that's why a lot of progress, and that is definitely different in the last 2 years, but why progress is so extremely slow. In the end, somebody has to say, okay, we have a decision. And that's where the next MAG lives with. Because face it, within 3 years, there's nobody left who has any recollection of what happened 4 years ago. So is there a way to propose decisions before the MAG goes out? What are your views? Because you're MAG members or ex-MAG members. I'm not. I'm just an observer, being very often in the room.
Can I just make a comment before Adam jumps in? Because I think you spoke on a couple of things. And what really jumped out at me is the other work of the MAG. As you said, once it's time to plan the meeting, everything else seems to go out the window. I'm a person that gets hundreds of emails a day from my job alone. I'm sure others do. And I think the amount of lists becomes overwhelming. The amount of email becomes overwhelming. I think that we need to focus on putting more emphasis on the new website, the new look and feel. It's much better. Probably having calendar of events showing there so that all the other work doesn't disappear. Because this is my first year, and in my mind, the only thing that we're doing is preparing to create the forum for this year. And only when I come to meetings, I hear, oh, this is going on, that is going on. I'm saying, oh yeah, I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to join into this group, and it gets lost. So I don't know.
That is exactly my experience from observing on the side and having participated in some of these working groups in the past.
Yeah, I was going to say something that is sort of, I guess, relevant to what Carol just said there, which is something that starts very early in the year, and it goes to something you said about is we decide the issue for the year. We decide the main issues for the year. There's a call, the issues come back, and then we are still reflecting on those now. We're still reflecting them in the main sessions, but you know, the amount of community input into those issues isn't necessarily great. I don't know how many people in this room participated in that process, but you know, you set something in January when you're not really sure what you're doing, which lasts with you throughout the year. So I'm not entirely sure that that is an ideal process. But anyway, that's just a thought. No, to Carol's point, there are too many lists. There are too many lists that are restarted in a slightly different form, so you move from one list to another list. There are too many wikis, and they pop up all the time, and lists pop up all the time. The MAG is a small group of 40 people, and the community that supports us with ideas and work is quite small. And so you're always dividing off into groups and working groups and holding sub-meetings. And those meetings might be 4 or 5 or 6 people, or even sometimes less. Carol, you and I have had a chat on a call one-to-one in a working group, I think, before now. And it's nice, but it's not how it should work, because we're talking about something that should be a globally inclusive process. But you end up with 4 or 5 people defining a major element of the agenda. So I think there's a habit of breaking the MAG and the community into 2 small groups too readily, and it's problematic. Too many lists, and then a new list forms out of the old list, and then there'll be a new working group, and there'll be a working group on every different topic, and it's really hard to follow. And then keep a record of, and then go back and look at and understand how a decision was made, which goes, I suppose, to the institutional memory points you were making. Well, anyway, I'll stop because I'm talking too much.
No, but I think we're on an important track, because yes, I've participated in some of the groups, and you sit there with 4 or 5 people and a few lobbying organizations that in the end are able to frustrate any progress. You know, I won't go into details, but it was pretty frustrating sometimes. But the fact is that no decision was ever reached. And only when and this was about how we're going to make the IGF more important, more with tangible outcomes, etc. That participated in. And once the Secretary General started to put his weight in, that's when discussions were really changed. And I can see that a lot of the things that we've been working at in 2017, 2018 are actually being discussed and seen as normal to progress in. But that you decide with a few people, that's the way it works, and that cannot be held. But you're the vanguard that will propose the way forward, basically. And next step is that the MAG agrees, but not always the MAG comes to some sort of conclusion. And that is something that needs to happen. I think that there was what Giacomo was saying really reflected with me. Why not decide? You can leave it to 2022, but you have a new MAC chair that we don't know. We don't know what his or her priorities are going to be. You have a third of the 50 people who are new and wondering what is this discussion about, and they have to find their way. And then Addis Ababa is upon us, and everybody focuses on that and vet the workshops. So what could be a discussion, and I'm talking a lot, I know, apologize, but I have that tendency, could be what will be the right time to decide and how to organize that process. Because otherwise you keep discussing the strategy for this and the communication and whatever, and perhaps even the MAG members in that group have left in January. So who's going to present the result then, in theory? So what we all feel, I've got a feeling that we all feel that this topic is important, but how do we go about it? What would you want me to say in a couple of minutes?
You know, I just know what the issue is. I don't know. I don't have any idea what a solution would be. I don't know. At the beginning, you know, when I first joined, um, sorry, I have to take a call. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, what I can do is to formalize a question how to organize decision-making process of the working groups, so that a decision is made before the MAG goes out. Is that the right sort of question to put?
If I may, Wout, I think the main problem is that the MAG doesn't have the power to take decision because 90% of the time of the MAG is spent in defining the program. I mean, the MAG, it seems, doesn't have the mandate to take decision. This is the main problem, I think. It's the problem is the IGF mandate. Maybe this should be changed in order to give a direction in terms of impact the IGF can have. What I see in the last year, I mean, considering the roadmap for digital cooperation and also the digital common report, it seems there is the willing of the UN Secretary General to give more power to IGF. But even if, for instance, for the multi-stakeholder level body, it seems everything has been stopped because the multi-stakeholder level body, I think, could be also a way to create more visibility and more impact on the IGF activity. But I think the main problem is to change the mandate of the IGF because it seems that the IGF is a platform, a discussion platform, and the time the MAG member spends is almost on the program, not to reflect on how the IGF would have an impact. So this, I think, is the main problem. About the suggestion, I think there are so many suggestions. So the problem is not the suggestion to improve the IGF, but the problem is how to have this suggestion put in practice. This is the main problem. Yeah.
But what I noticed that the MAG has all these working groups, but what you're saying, Titi, is that if I understand you correctly, that in the end they can discuss it in the MAG, but there's no way to make a clear decision on it, except as internal MAG policy.
I mean, this MAG working group really can take decision, but cannot. I mean, the MAG could take decision, but these decisions are not really put in practice. This is what I think. I mean, I'm speaking about the impact of the IGS. I'm not speaking about this is a decision that could have a role within the IGF platform, because the MAG is responsible to take decision for in the scope of the IGF mandate. This is and the scope of the IGF mandate is a little bit limited, on my opinion, because most of the activity that refers to the MAG as related to the IGF definition, discussion, program, but there is no much said in the mandate that is related to the recommendation. It seems that the discussion is important. I mean, discussion is important to sensibilize the public opinion on this theme, but then maybe the mandate should be integrated with something else that refers to the impact of the IGF worldwide at the global level, inside the UN. So that's why it's important to integrate the mandate, adding the linkages with the other group you work in the UN, adding something that relates the IGF results also to what is indicated also in the UN General Assembly. There is nothing that is discussed in IGF that is reported also on the UN General Assembly in so strong way. I mean, it seems that UN Secretary is trying to to put the IGF at the center of the attention, but it seems that there are different opinion on having the IGF at the center and having the IGF as also a way to have an impact, because I mean, for me the discussion is important, but also give continuity impact is important, because otherwise the discussion becomes so not so important. I don't find the right word in English, but a little bit how do you say sterile, we say in Italiano, but I think I transfer my what I think.
Can you say the Italian word again?
A little bit sterile, we say in Italian. Sterile, because you continue to discuss something and you have big results of discussion, but then if you don't put in practice, if they are not operational, it seems that the discussion is not so useful.
Okay, I think that we've been looking forward and in the short term and in the longer term. And I think we've got a minute left. Any famous last words?
Just to say that I have to leave for a few minutes because I have another call. I will be back in 10 minutes. Okay, thanks a lot to you all. Bye.
Okay, then I'll go over my notes and hopefully I'm able to read them, the horrible handwriting I have.
Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, everyone, from your breakout group discussions. Thanks, everyone, for continuing to give so much of your energy and thought to the meeting. We're on the last day, so it's not easy. While I give the virtual group a little bit of time just to get back to me on their rapporteur, can I invite the Sunshine Group to present the output of their discussion to us. Who is your rapporteur? Roberto Zambrana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Roberto Zambrana, second-year MAC member from Bolivia, IGF. Well, we were discussing about things that we will need improvement for the different activities that we have in the rest of the year going to our IGF 2021. And one of the things we were discussing about was all the different concepts that we have about the IGF. Most of these concepts sometimes are even clear for the new MAC members. So we think that it is really, really important for the new attendees and for the people that will be engaging the IGF, maybe even for the very first time, to have all these concepts very clear. As we remember, last year we managed to have some sort of videos for the introductory sessions, as we remember. And perhaps that's something that we could do now, We could invite some MAC members to speak even in their own languages, in a very common language also, so they could explain what are the different phases of the IGF, what are the different stages, the processes, etc. That will be good. And also, if we could get some sort of maybe graphical or animated videos for the people to understand in a very easy way, that also could be really, really helpful to understand all the IGF and all the different processes that we have in this. The other thing that we consider, because as we all know, during these 2 days, 3 days actually, several suggestions were made, and I'm sure everything was very well synthesized, and we have the record of many of these interesting suggestions. So the second suggestions that we also were discussing during the task in our working group is related to the communications efforts that we need to do for the rest of the year, aiming to our IGF 2021, and perhaps it will be need to coordinate maybe closer. We all know that the Secretariat's working with very, very close to the host country, but it will be important to know what are the different strategies that they are thinking, particularly about outreach and communication. Perhaps they already are in charge of the media manager, like the people that is going to tweet for those days. Perhaps they are not thinking about it yet. Another example is the web page. We don't really know if the web page, so far what we can see is that the web page that was arranged by the host country is linking many of the comments of the content to the actual Internet Governance Forum webpage. We don't know if they're going to prepare some other content. It could be good to have a knowledge about it in order to contribute also with that kind of content. And the same goes for the media administration, for the media actions. Who is going to tweet, if the people that they already hired is going to be there to make this kind of communication through all different social network channels, etc. And if they don't, or if it wasn't defined yet, perhaps we're going to start looking for some volunteers to support that kind of work. So that's another important thing that we discussed regarding to part 1. And regarding to part 2, so what are the things that we should think about for the IGF 2022? We thought about, to make a very big effort to reach MAC members and procure their commitment from the very beginning. As we all know, we couldn't have all the involvement of MAC members during the whole process during this year. And it's really, really complicated situation, but we, as from the previous year, were even less people involved in this. And as we all know, there are a lot of different activities that we need to take care of. So it will be good, even if we could get them together by the end of IGF 2021, and also inviting the future host country, which in this case is going to be Ethiopia. It will be great to start having a meeting just by the very end of this IGF 2021. So by the beginning of 2022, we could start working, and the other good thing will be to start arranging the different working groups that particularly in the first stage of the process, the work that these working groups are going to do are, as we all know, is very, very important. So the more people we have involved, the better, particularly the newcomers, that I'm sure they will need a lot of support and a lot of engagement, so we don't have lack of participation as we do have now. Well, I think that's what I have so far. I'm not sure if one of our other colleagues would like to add something else.
Thanks very much, Roberto. No additions from anyone. Thanks very much for that. Let's hear the second report, and then we have some discussion and feedback. So our virtual group report will be presented by Wout. Wout, please go ahead.
I'm trying to get the video on, but you can already hear me, I hope. Yes, there I am.
We can hear you. We'll survive without seeing you, as long as we can hear you.
I think I'm there, Henriette. Thank you. And yes, after the Sunshine Group, this is the Darkness Group, and we discussed quite a lot. I will be reflecting on the topics that we've discussed. I think the first topic that came up was the micro targeting that was discussed by the communications working group, and that had some support because it's extremely important to reach out to stakeholder groups in their language and in their issues to make sure that they understand the added value that the IGF can have for them, and not resort to comments like you're just a talking shop, so why should I ever have to go there, which you quite often hear from the business community, for example. Another comment that was made was about the dynamic coalitions, that some people noted that they're not really integrated into the process enough, and that maybe a lot of them do not understand the added value they can have to the whole process, and that also perhaps they should be integrated more into the whole IGF process itself, so that they can assist, that they can participate in working groups if necessary, and they can understand what their added value to the IGF is or should become if they're not aware of it. So in other words, there are not enough dynamic coalitions involved in this process actually that we're having today. So that is especially where the outcomes in the future are concerned is an issue to reflect on in the coming IGF cycle. Another comment made was that to make the IGF more important overall, it becomes important to pay attention to it at a regular basis at the highest level. So somebody suggested that, is it possible for the United Nations Secretary General and the Under Secretary Generals to point to IGF processes in a continuous way, so that we have meetings that are on internet governance, that the Internet Governance Forum is mentioned, and perhaps some topics are highlighted on the side of it. And an example that was given is that in a UN discussion going on at this point in time, feeding into the UN GGE discussions and the open-ended working group, is that the high-level ambassador is pleading to start an internet governance forum to have discussions on internet governance. So in other words, he had no idea that there is such a forum already, and he is speaking to the rest of the world to create it. So in other words, this was discussed from going from the MAG to MAG and IGF cycle to IGF cycle. And that there's a clear need that there needs to be a flow of activities, that when the new MAG comes in, is not just a new MAG that has to be instructed about what has been going on before, but also the community itself, that it could become much more clearer when it's possible to have influence on the MAG program as IGF community. So that it could be better announced and perhaps also more urgently announced to the community. We discussed it a little bit further on decision making, because I've made a comment on Henriette about why not decide now, and I understand why you responded in the chat as you did. But we discussed it in a more broad way, and we came up with a couple of points. That one, and that is a very general one, from a few new MAG members, they said the amount of work simply seems to be too huge. There are too many lists, there's too many outputs, and it's almost impossible to keep up with the rest of your regular day work, etc. So perhaps work needs to become more focused in the future. But how to make sure that decisions are actually made? So we have seen presentations from working groups, but there's also experiences with working groups in the past where in the end never a decision was made. So they put in a whole year of work and the new MAC comes in and a new working group was established and it wasn't really discussed or decided on in any way. So how can we make sure that there becomes a process that when working groups are institutionalized by the MAG, that there is a clear point in time where a decision is made and not to leave it to a new MAG who may have totally other priorities and usually starts focusing on the next actual IGF and puts all its energy in that. So in other words, to create a process on decision making. But when we got to decision making, there was another comment that was made is about the MAG mandate. So we are discussing strategy. We and I mean you, I'm not a MAG member, apologies for that. But we today are discussing strategy, communication, etc., etc. But does the MAG actually have the mandate to make a decision on topics like that? And for internal use, undoubtedly, but is it also the case for the wider community and beyond? So that was a topic that was asked to look into for 2022, and perhaps from there discuss with the UN on the actual mandate of the MAG, if that should be changed, also looking forward towards an IGF plus or plus plus model. So should the IGF or should the MAG in general have more power so that, for example, when outputs are made, that they are presented in the UN General Assembly once a year? Because how do member states ever understand what the outputs of the IGF are if they're never confronted with them in one way or another? So is there an option for the IGF to report to the general meeting in the assembly in the future? So that's the sort of very broad discussions and very limited discussions that we've had, but I think I've tackled them all. But please join in if I have forgotten one or misunderstood. So with that, I'll stop, Henriette, and have a good meeting.
Thank you very much, Wout. Anyone want to add from the virtual group to Wout's report? No other comments. Well, thank you very much, both groups. I think those are very interesting comments, and I think they're also very concrete comments. So, I mean, let's open the floor. We've got a few minutes left. Are there any additions, any questions, any reflections on these proposals? I have a few that I will just highlight. I mean, the one that is actually not necessarily here, but I think it's implied. But I would suggest that the working group strategy and the working group on outreach and engagement have a joint meeting together with the Secretariat, both the team in the Secretariat dealing with communications, Eleonora, and with Women's Arena, just so that you agree on just a common approach and common targets for the reporting and the communications and the outreach, because there was a lot of overlap between the working group strategy and the working group on outreach and engagement for the longer term, but I think also for the shorter term. Then I wanted to ask, both groups talked about the need for this MAG, for this IGF, to really focus on messaging and branding and communicating with people about what the IGF is and how it is, why it's important. And Roberto, you suggested the idea of videos, and Wout talked about communication in different languages. So I was wondering if perhaps if there are going to be videos, if we can use the diversity of languages in the MAG and have, just maybe a very short script that's developed about this year's IGF and why it's important. And then we ask different MAG members to record that in their own languages. So, and similarly, we could ask others in the Secretariat, in the intersessional modality. So I think that's a very exciting suggestion, as long as we keep it realistic. And Chengetai is again willing to lend his expertise. I think that's a very good idea. And then I thought, Roberto, your point about your group's point about the need for coordination between the MAG, the host, and the Secretariat, social media strategy, the different web pages, the admin of media liaison and engagement. Why not work with Eleonora and the MAG and the host country just to develop a briefing document? Short briefing document on what are the communications platforms and processes. Would that be something that's doable, Eleonora, or are you already planning that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, of course that's doable. And I'll also add that it's within our communication strategy and part of the presentation that Amado from the working group gave to engage MAG members in this social media activity. The form that was displayed on the screen while Amado was giving the presentation is in fact an invitation to MAG members to provide us with their social media handles and to indicate their interest in being kind of more focused social media ambassadors so that we in the Secretariat can share content with them that they can then further disseminate.
That's fantastic, and I really like the concept of social media ambassadors. And then, what was my other thought? I think very concrete, very useful suggestion, and I would like Chengetai to and perhaps you and Dessa to comment on whether it's feasible to have a face-to-face meeting of the incoming MAG in Katowice at the end of the IGF. This has been attempted before. This is not, it's not a new idea. It's not an easy idea. But the UN Secretary General and UN DESA has really made a huge effort. And in fact, we now have new MAG members announced much earlier than they were in the past. But it's not always possible. So I'm going to ask Chengetai to refer to that. But I think it is a good idea to have that meeting and to start working earlier rather than later. Roberto.
Thank you very much, Henriette. Just a quick comment. It could also be a hybrid. It doesn't have to be all face-to-face. That's some sort of suggestion.
Of course it can be hybrid. We did have a meeting very early. We had a meeting in December, as far as I recall, of the new MAG. No, there was a full MAG meeting. So we did start very early. And I can assure you that with this year's IGF, we had orientation to new MAG members. We had individual outreach to MAG members, old or new, that were not participating actively. And we have a record. We maintain, myself and the Secretariat, maintain a record of MAG members' contribution to the work of the MAG. And I must say, I really feel that both myself and the Secretariat have done as much as we can to reach out to MAG members. And I think all in all, MAG members have been very responsive. But you're right, it was difficult to have such a big transition with so many new MAG members and such a small MAG relatively to the previous year. So I think if it's hybrid, that is good. But I think actually taking advantage of the face-to-face opportunity, because I think for this year's MAG, which was really difficult, was not starting the cycle with the opportunity to get to know one another a little bit. It's, you know, we are human, and no matter how good we are at working online, it's harder if we don't know one another at all. Okay, Adam, I'm going to come to you now. I just want to run through my notes because then I've done it. I think, based about your comment about dynamic coalitions, what I've observed this year is that they've been very actively integrated into the planning of the preparatory phase and the main sessions. I agree with you that I would like to see dynamic coalitions more actively involved in open consultations and in MAG meetings. And I would suggest for the incoming MAG and the Secretariat to look at maybe formalizing a little bit more what you expect from dynamic coalitions. They are independent, obviously, they are autonomous like NRIs, but I think it would be good in the way that we see NRIs actually being very present in at certain moments, but with both of those modalities, I think, you know, maybe having an agreement or understanding that they know they are expected to participate at every single open consultation and observe MAG meetings. I'm just saying that for consideration. Of course, it's still voluntary, but I do think we would benefit. I think the MAG would benefit from having their participation. So, Secretariat, you can comment later. And I think Wout's point was about the U.S. Secretary General, the status of the IGF and how the IGF is represented and presented within UN spaces. I think that's an important consideration, and it links also to the mandate of the MAG. I think it's part of the evolution of the IGF, and UNDESA is focusing on that. And I think perhaps if they can share with us some of their reflections or proposals on that. We're just running a little bit late, but maybe before the end of the day. And that also relates to the outputs to member states. And Wout, you might not remember, but yesterday there was also a suggestion to use a mechanism from the previous IGFs, which is to ask the host country to also play a role in presenting the IGF output reports to other member states. But all of this has been documented, and these proposals that you've made for 2022, the Secretariat will put that in the meeting summary, and it can be, and MAG members, you'll be here, so you will have those proposals and just raise them at the first MAG meeting for the next cycle so that you can start with these ideas. I would add to this also Giacomo's suggestion earlier, which is to start looking at how to approach the issue focus earlier rather than later. And just to remind everyone, we did actually start this year with having only 2 main issues and 4 cross-cutting issues. And we are now actually treating them all equally. But let's not forget that they are not entirely equal. We did want to focus more on the 2 main issues. And we'll see that reflected also when we look at the session reports. Because remember, there was also an allocation of sessions to the different issue areas. So I think it will emerge in the documentation of the outcomes as well. I see, Adam, you have asked for the floor. Please, sorry that I took so long, Adam. Go ahead, and then we'll break for lunch after Adam's input.
Thanks, Henriette. Hi, it's Adam Peake for the record, and no problem at all. It was very interesting, and thank you. I had 2 points. One is quite straightforward, and I will note that I am not a diplomat and not politically very aware about publicizing, making the IGF known, encouraging people to participate. We do not seem to use the office of the Secretary General, who is probably one of the most influential and connected people in the world, and we are convening the IGF on his behalf. I wonder if he could include a note about the IGF in his talking points when he meets with business and civil society and governments and intergovernmental organizations, to just simply say, by the way, the IGF is very important to me, and please take a look at this information my office has prepared. Something like that, because we work in a world of talking points and so on. I don't know if that's a feasible thing to do, but I do think we have the opportunity of, as I said, one of the most influential and connected people in the world, hopefully on our side. Anyway, but the point really carrying on from the discussion here is my impression as a new MAG member this year is that the process is too complicated. We have an important process that in and of itself is complicated. It's a complex thing to arrange. We also have this project has limited resources. It has limited resources because we act as volunteers. It's limited resources because the excellent Secretariat is a small group of people who are very, very overworked, and we very much appreciate the work that they do. But we do have a habit of seeing an issue and adding a bit of process to it. It might be a new working group. It might be a new mailing list. And I think we could do with just thinking about what process we're doing before we add more. Documenting that process, making it understood, so that there is an understanding of just where are the mailing lists, where are the wikis, what is being done on those things, and don't create a new one. We've had issues, as Henriette just mentioned, since the start of this year. There should be a single issue list that starts in January and runs potentially even into the next year, if that's relevant, because we need an institutional memory. And if we keep flipping around between lists, we don't have that. We have wikis that appear all over the place on different topics. And these are just some of the more obvious sort of public-facing examples. So document the process, make them understood, give clarity, and don't keep adding extra layers of process. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Very good suggestions. And I hope that the new website at least will help to simplify some of that. We do need to break for lunch, but I want to ask the Secretariat if they wanted to comment at all on any of this input from MAG members.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, there's a lot of good ideas there. We need to look carefully at some of them. There's, first of all, the meeting with both MAGs. I think that's a good idea. I think we've attempted to do that in several MAG meetings, and we will try and do that again. It's a good thing that it is a hybrid meeting, because I'm not too sure how many of the new MAG will be able to come, etc. So we can give it our best shot on the day, maybe on the last day. I'm not too sure, but we'll do that. And there's other issues that we have to consult on, especially with New York, etc. There was this idea about the MAG directly addressing the General Assembly. I personally don't think that's possible, and unless there is a change in the MAG's mandate, which was being discussed, because the MAG, sends its advice to the Secretary General, so I don't think they can act independently as such. I don't think that's possible at the moment. And yes, and I echo Adam's statements, very good statements again, and also adding processes. We really do have to take a good look at that, and to see also, as Adam has mentioned, that the MAG is a volunteer group. So when we add processes, when we there was the suggestion of having, Secretariat, host country, and MAG as well. Does that really forward the agenda, or does it just add another layer that doesn't really enhance anything as such. Or is it better to have it that, there is regular reporting to the MAG and the MAG has the opportunity to comment, etc. So again, a lot of good ideas. We have to look at some of them internally. We have to discuss some of them with New York as well. But thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Shangatai. And I think take a long view, because perhaps in the resolution the General Assembly takes in 2025, there could be a little bit more about how the IGF's outcomes and outputs can be communicated. But of course, it's very difficult to get member states to agree to anything that could conflict with what they feel should be the second process, which will come up in that resolution, and that's enhanced cooperation, which is still on the table. So it's tricky. But I just want to echo Adam's suggestion, and maybe if we can put as the MAG actually send a message to the SG's office, because we know the SG is concerned with the IGF, and his presence has been incredibly helpful in terms of raising the profile of the IGF. But documents that emerge from the SG's office tend to refer to the IGF as something that needs to be improved. So it might be also helpful if the SG could also produce something in writing that recognizes and commends the value of the IGF, perhaps in response to the evaluation. Anyway, thanks very much, everyone. I'm very sorry we went over time. Good comments for this year and for the future. So let's break for lunch, and we'll return at 1500 Geneva time. And then we'll have main session proposals. I would like the main session proposal presenters to prepare, and if you could share your screens. The Secretariat actually have to use their computers. So they've put in a request that they're taking meeting notes and documenting the meeting. So unless you really cannot, it would be helpful if the MAG members who present share their own screens. We'll help you if necessary. Enjoy your break.
Chair, I'm sorry. May I just add something to that for the room? Please still send your main session proposals to the Secretariat, though, because we will post them in the meeting documents section, so they're accessible to everyone.
Good. Thanks, Eleonora.